Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to share this one with you today. Think about it. We use the word hello dozens, maybe hundreds of times a day. It just feels like it's always been this fundamental, rock-solid part of human language, right? Like it's been around since the dawn of time. Well, what if I told you the everyday mystery behind the world's most common greeting is actually tied to hunting dogs, riverboats, and a fierce, cutthroat 19th century technology rivalry?
To kick things off, let me ask you a question. Have you ever caught a movie continuity error? You know, those hilarious little moments that make you pause the screen and point at the TV? Maybe you spotted that infamous gas-powered chariot just kind of hiding in the background of an arena scene in Gladiator. Or, perhaps you noticed Dorothy's pigtails magically growing and receding by like 4 inches throughout a single scene in The Wizard of Oz. We all love spotting these visual mistakes for sure, but there's a massive linguistic mistake that happens all the time in historical movies.
Honestly, if you ever watch a movie set before the 1800s, maybe a gritty, mud-soaked epic about Vikings, or a high-stakes drama set in the Roman Empire, and a character greets someone by cheerfully saying hello, you have just uncovered a major continuity error. It's a complete historical anachronism. The truth is, hello, as a friendly everyday greeting, simply did not exist for most of human history. Hearing a Roman centurion say hello to his commander is literally just as historically inaccurate as seeing him, check his text messages on an Apple Watch. Okay, let's dive into this timeline to see what English speakers were actually using before our modern greeting came along. Going way back to 1632, we have the very first recorded use of the phrase, "How do ye?" which, as you might guess, eventually morphed into howdy. It wasn't until 1826, much later, that we see the first written record of the phrase, "hello the house," in an American publication. Just a year later, in 1827, the Oxford English Dictionary officially recognizes the word hello, but still not as a friendly greeting. And then we hit the real game changer, 1876, the invention of the telephone. Now you might be wondering, if people weren't saying hello for hundreds of years, what words or expressions were folks in English-speaking countries actually using to greet each other? Well, take howdy, for example. It was a contraction of how do you do, or how do ye, and it was a perfectly polite, common inquiry long before a modern greeting existed. People also relied on quick, sharp attention-getters like hi, which actually dates back to the 15th century, or hey. But the thing is, none of these functioned exactly like the universal, catch-all hello we rely on today.
What's really wild is just how chaotic this spelling of this word used to be. Long before hello was officially standardized, it had this massive identity crisis in the English language. In the 1920s, the English lexicographer H.W. Fowler actually complained about all these variations. People were writing holu, hello, halo, hola, holler, hulo. The list just goes on and on. As Fowler so bluntly put it, the multiplicity of forms for this word was simply bewilder.
So where did all these chaotic, bewildering shouts actually come from? Well, etymologists trace the roots back to words that were originally aggressive or just purely utilitarian noises. For example, the Old High German holla or hola was an emphatic, loud shout used specifically to hail a ferryman to come fetch you across a river. It was also used as a hunting call, a literal hello, to urge the hounds forward in the chase. We also see the Middle French hola, which essentially meant ahoy there or stop. The whole point was entirely about grabbing someone's attention from a distance. It definitely wasn't about making friends. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the word was used before the telephone came along. Just listen to this quote from Mark Twain in his 1883 book, Life on the Mississippi. "Hello, the house. Show a light. We want water." See, you didn't just walk up to someone on the street and say hello to be pleasant. You shouted it from a distance to announce your presence or to demand immediate attention. It functioned a lot more like yelling, "Hey you, pay attention to me." Which brings us directly to a fierce 19th century tech bro rivalry over user interface standards. Seriously, when the telephone was invented in 1876, nobody had a clue what to say when they picked up the receiver. There was zero social precedent for speaking into a machine. Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone himself, vehemently preferred using the nautical greeting ahoy or ahoy hoy. But his fierce rival, Thomas Edison, decided that shouting the attention-getter hello into the receiver was absolutely the best way to confirm the line was open and working. Now, before we go any further, we have to quickly debunk a totally hilarious internet hoax that constantly circulates via email forwards and social media. The myth claims that the word hello actually comes from the name of Alexander Graham Bell's girlfriend, Margaret Hello, and that he used her name to answer the phone out of true love.
Yeah, no, this is entirely false. Bell was actually courting and eventually married a woman named Mabel Hubbard. Plus, as we just learned, Bell didn't even like the word hello in the first place. He was staunchly Team Ahoy.
But speaking of Team Ahoy, Bell's defeated greeting actually survives today through a fantastic piece of pop culture trivia. If you're a fan of The Simpsons, you probably know that the ancient billionaire owner of the Springfield nuclear power plant, Mr. Monty Burns, still answers his telephone by saying, "Ahoy hoy." The writer specifically gave him this greeting as a brilliant, subtle nod to his extreme old age. It implies he's literally been using the telephone since Bell's original failed recommendation back in the 1870s.
So the crucial point is that Thomas Edison's preferred word, hello, absolutely dominated this early format war. It became the official instruction manual standard for answering the telephone. In fact, it won out so definitively that by the year 1880, the female operators who worked the central telephone exchanges were famously and officially nicknamed the Hello Girls. The telephone basically single-handedly took this loud, distant shout and morphed it into the friendly, ubiquitous greeting we use today.
Let's move along and see how this builds into a truly fascinating cross-border linguistic loop. Remember a few moments back how we talked about the Middle French word hola, meaning ahoy there? Well, that original French word hola did indeed help shape the English term hello, which then made its way right back to France in the form of their famous allo. See, when telephone technology was exported, the French adopted the English telephone greeting to use with the new machines, but because the H is silent in French, they naturally pronounced it as allo. So it's like a linguistic boomerang. The French exported the root of the word centuries ago and then imported the tech greeting right back into their modern vocabulary.
And it's highly worth noting that similar words in other languages evolved entirely parallel to this over the centuries. Take the Spanish hola and Portuguese hola, for example. These literally translate to hey there, derived from ho, la, ah. It reveals a pretty universal human instinct, honestly. When we need to get someone's attention across a distance, across almost any culture, we naturally combine a loud, sonorous ho or ha sound with a locational word meaning there.
So, what does this all mean for us today? Well, it leaves us with this final provocative thought. Hello started as a loud, aggressive shout to fetch a ferryman or command a hunting dog, and a brand new piece of communication technology fundamentally rewired it into humanity's most basic social greeting. So, what modern tech-derived words, things like Googling, tweeting, or DMing, might survive for hundreds of years, completely detached from their original context? How is today's technology actively rewiring human language for the future? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your ears open for the incredible history hidden in our everyday words.